welcome to my views and news. A viewer contacted me. He said, Sajid, why don't you compare PM Abiy government's performance and TPLF-led EPRDF's performance? You saw a war in Ethiopia, tens of thousands killed, millions displaced, hunger, drought, internal conflicts. And PP has priorities which are criticized by some neutral observers. So what is your take on PM Abiy government's performance if you compare it with EPRDF's performance, TPLF-led? Interesting topic. So I thought of sharing my views with you. Firstly, EPRDF ruled Ethiopia for around 3 decades. PM Abiy came to power in 2018. So it's unfair to compare a 5-year government and a 27-year government. PM Abiy has had enough time in office, but still the comparison is unfair. But if you look at some areas and try to compare the performance of two sides, you would see that starting from a foreign policy, PM Abiy government has managed to improve ties with neighbors. When it comes to Africa, I think PM Abiy adopted a policy of non-interference. Ethiopia is not interfering in any neighboring country. Eritrea, Sudan, Somalia, Somaliland. Ethiopia is largely neutral in the issues and conflicts South Sudan in neighboring countries. This is a big change. Under EPRDF, Ethiopia was accused of interference in neighboring countries. So, and it's partly due to the fact that PM Abiy fought a war against TPLF, and he did not want any African country, European country to support TPLF. So he was against interference in his country. That is why he's against interference of his country in other countries too. Ethiopian relations with African countries, with neighbors especially, improved a lot under PM Abiy's rule, you can say, especially Ethiopia-Eritrea relations. During EPRDF, Ethiopia fought a war, Ethiopia-Eritrea war, border clashes as well. But PM Abiy managed to avert external wars. Ethiopia's relations with the West and EU went through up and down. One can say that Ethiopia is not as close to EU and US as it was when EPRD was in power. Yes, it's largely correct. It's mainly because Ethiopian government has been accusing EU and US of backing TPLF. So TPLF was seen as a Trojan horse of the US and EU. But we're seeing gradual improvement. So when it comes to foreign policy, I think Abiy performed better in Africa than in Europe and US. But when you compare performance in terms of economic growth, new projects, prosperity, development, you see that PM Abiy's government has no priorities which are going to change the lives of the people of Ethiopia. EPRDF found it good. PM Abiy filled it. Yes, it was difficult to fill it, but EPRDF started that project. PM Abiy's government is focused on building palaces, roads, museums, libraries, while millions are in dire need of food. People cannot make both ends meet. People need education, healthcare facilities. But I criticize his priorities when it comes to performance of the government, economic growth, prosperity, development. And we must not forget that his government is just out of a war. 2-year-long war ravished Ethiopian economy. 2-year-long war dried foreign investment, foreign support. And we must not forget that the world is facing economic challenge as a whole as well. Even some European countries are facing the threat of recession. Food prices gone up globally. So globally, economic conditions are not encouraging for most of the countries. And Ethiopia has its internal problems too, war, drought, etc. So that is why economic performance of the PM Abiy's government is worse than EPRDF or TPLF. And secondly, the government is under pressure because US, EU have been using carrot and stick policy. Ethiopia is trying to get some bailout package, but EUS, they want Ethiopia to do more. So the government, due to global economic challenges and due to the war in northern Ethiopia, has taken the country to a situation where the government is in dire need of financial aid for survival. EPRDF was much, much better. That era was much, much better. Thirdly, cohesion, internal cohesion. TPLF came up with a system. You agree with it or disagree with it, but that was a system introduced by TPLF, which we saw in the era of the TPLF-led EPRDF, that ethnic federalism was introduced. Obviously, it was a reaction against attempts of one culture, one religion, one flag policies of the past. PM Abiy government could not introduce a new system. Ethnic federalism is still in place to some extent, you can say. National dialogue is underway, war was fought, peace deal has been signed, but no new system. Basically, things are the same. Government claims that ethnicity should have no role in the country's politics, in country's state affairs, etc. But internally, we know that ethnicity is still, it's a major factor. So PM Abiy's government could not come up with an alternative. Maybe it's because of the war, 2-year-long war. Maybe it's because of the internal other conflicts. Now, the government is trying to devise a new system, which we might see in coming months, I think. Deliberations are underway. We got information a few months ago about this new system of government, which is being discussed. In coming days, I think things will be clear. But so far, Ethiopian government of PM Abiy could not introduce any new system of governance of government, new groundbreaking amendments to constitution, nothing so far. System is the same. Internal cohesion seriously disturbed. Tigrayans were declared as a threat to national security. Tigrayans, common Tigrayans, tens of thousands were put in prisons. And luckily, a peace deal was signed and now they are gradually being released. Now Amharas, tens of thousands in prisons. Journalists, activists, religious notables, Fano supporters, all are being arrested, put in prisons. So internal cohesion is missing. Yes, there were conflicts when EPRDF was in power. There was OLA too, there were Gumuz fighters too, Ago Amhara tension was there too. But PM Abiy, when he came to power, his slogan was change, prosperity, democracy, development, that reconciliation. That is what he said in 2018. And he signed peace deal with Eritrea, Somalia too. But that cohesion as a result of reconciliation is still missing. We're seeing start of a new rivalry between Oromo and Amhara political elite for more power in Ethiopia. So PM Abiy's government could not steer the country towards opposition, which we can say is promising for the future of Ethiopia. That is how I can sum up the performance of this government. These times, these ongoing months, I think this year 2023 is very crucial for both countries, Ethiopia and Eritrea. I think Eritrea is trying to work on economy. I've been saying that people don't agree with me, but I think he's focused. He wants to do something. Maybe he's following Chinese model, but he wants to bring about change in Eritrea because people have been suffering economically. He believes that TPLF is not a threat now. So he is in a position to make decisions about economic progress. In Ethiopia, I think core issues are going to be resolved in coming days. If they are resolved, we'll have to see. Core issues about relations between the federation and regions, constitution, role of ethnicity, role of religion, etc. All these issues are unsettled in Ethiopia. PM Abiy's government failed in the 5-year-long period to answer important questions. Ethiopia is also in a transition phase now. Can PM Abiy's government answer key questions and find a common answer with participation of all stakeholders? Or will he keep on taking solo flight, crushing opposition and working for the protection of the rights of one specific ethnic group? That we'll see. But I see Ethiopia is in a transition phase now. PM Abiy believes that he is in a position now that he can make big decisions. Because TPLF is not a threat now to the federation. Though we're seeing a new threat emerge from the Amhara region. Isaias Afwerki believes the same, that now he can make big decisions about economic integration, regional alliance, and that he can devise a strategy for prosperity in Eritrea. Let's see what he does. In Ethiopia, problem is that not only are the issues, main issues unresolved, but the priorities of the government are not right as well. Government claims to be self-sufficient in terms of wheat production. It starts exporting wheat, while tens of thousands are dependent on foreign food assistance. So something is wrong with the priorities of PM Abiy's government. Any democratic reforms in Ethiopia in the last 5 years or so? Is it democracy that opposition parties are not allowed to work freely? No protests allowed. Just yesterday, peaceful rally of Muslims was attacked, 2 killed. In Amhara, anyone who just speaks for the protection of Amhara interests or criticizes the government is arrested. So we can say that he came to power on slogan of change, on slogan of reconciliation. So far, he could not deliver, we can say. But I think we should give a little more time to him, maybe a year or two, because this transitional phase is very crucial. Can he now involve all stakeholders, TPLF, Amhara hardliners, Oromo, nationalists, Ola, etc.? Can he involve all of them to find a solution to Ethiopian problems through amendments, through changes? That we'll see in coming days. If he fails to take all of them on board, we could see a continuation of tensions and conflicts in Ethiopia. Thank you for watching.